Hello, Rama Rama Pupudu. Hope all are in good health, feeling great, wonderful, having a happy and peaceful life. Now, let's continue with chapter 1. I plainly remember my interview with a cockney under the shadow of Trichinopolis' gigantic rock fort. For over 20 years, he had held a responsible post on the Indian Railways. It was inevitable that I should ply him with many questions about his life in this sunburnt land. Finally, I trotted out my pet interrogation. Have you met any yogis? He looked at me somewhat blankly and then replied, Yogis? What are they? Some kind of animal? Such ignorance would have been perfectly pardonable had he stayed at home within the sound of bow bells. Now, after 26 years' residence in the country, it was perfectly blissful. I permitted it to remain undisturbed because I put pride underfoot in moving among the varied peoples who inhabited Hindustan, because I gave them a ready understanding and an intellectual sympathy, a freedom from pinky prejudice, and a regard for character irrespective of color, and because I had sought truth all my life and was prepared to accept whatsoever truth brought in its train, I am able to write this record. I picked my way through a crowd of superstitious fools and self styled fakirs in order to sit at the feet of true sages, there to learn at first hand the real teachings of Indian yoga. I squatted on the floor in many a secluded hermitage, surrounded by faces and hearing strange dialects. I sought out those reserved and reclusive men, the best yogis, and listened humbly to their oracular instruction. I talked for hours with the Brahmin Pandits of Benares, discussing the age old questions of philosophy and belief which have tormented the mind and troubled the heart of man since he first began to think. I stopped now and then to divert myself with the magician and wonder worker, and strange incidents crossed my trails. I wanted to gather the real facts about the yogis of today by the method of first hand investigation. I prided myself that experience as a journalist fitted me to draw out with the least possible delay much of the information which I sought. That sitting at the editorial desk and curtly wielding the blue pencil had trained me to become ruthlessly critical in separating wheat from chaff, and that the contact with men and women in every grade of life, which the profession generally gives, with ragged mendicants as well as well fed millionaires, would help me move just a little more smoothly through the variegated masses of India, among whom I searched for those strange men, the yogis. On the other side of the street, I had lived an inner life totally detached from my outward circumstance. I spent much of my spare time in the study of recondite books and in little known by parts of psychological experiment. I delved into subjects which always have been wrapped in Cimmerian mystery. To these items must be added an inborn attraction towards things oriental. The East, before my first visit, threw out vast tentacles that gripped my soul. Ultimately, they drew me to study the sacred books of Asia, the learned commentaries of her Pandits, and the inscribed thoughts of her sages, so far as English translations could be procured. This dual experience proved of great value. It taught me never to permit my sympathy with Oriental methods of probing life's mysteries to subvert my scientific desire of critically and impartially finding the facts. Without that sympathy, I could never have gone among people and into places where the average Englishman in India may disdain to tread. Without that strict scientific attitude, I might have been led away into the wilderness of superstition, as so many Indians seem to have been led away. It is not easy to conjoin qualities which are usually held to be contradictory, but I sincerely tried to hold them in sane balance. I journeyed eastwards in search of the yogis and their hermetic knowledge. The thought of finding a spiritual light and diviner life was also entertained, though it was not my primary purpose. I wandered along the banks of India, holy rivers, the quiet grey-green Ganges, the broad Jamna, and the picturesque Godavari. In this quest, I circled the country. India took me to her heart, and the vanishing remnant of her sages opened many a door for the unfamiliar Westerner. Not so long ago, I was among those who regard God as an hallucination of human fancy, spiritual truth as a mere nebula, and providential justice as a confection for infertile idealists. I too was somewhat impatient of those who construct theological paradises and who then confidently show you round with an air of being God's estate agents. I had nothing but contempt for what seemed to be the futile, fanatical efforts of uncritical theorizers. If, therefore, I have begun to think a little differently about these matters, rest assured that good cause has been given me. Yet I did not arrive at paying allegiance to any Eastern creed. Indeed, those which matter I had already studied intellectually much earlier. I did arrive at a new acceptance of the divine. This may seem quite an insignificant and personal thing to do, but as a child of this modern generation which relies on hard facts and cold reason and which lacks enthusiasm for things religious, I regard it as quite an achievement. This faith was restored in the only way a skeptic could have it restored, not by argument, but by the witness of an overwhelming experience. And it was a jungle sage, an unassuming hermit who had formerly lived for 6 years in a mountain cave, who promoted this vital change in my thinking. It is quite possible that he could not pass a matriculation examination, yet I am not ashamed to record in the closing chapters of this book my deep indebtedness to this man. The production of such sages provides India with sufficient credentials to warrant attention from intelligent Westerners. The secret India's spiritual life still exists, despite the storms of political agitation which now hide it, and I have tried to give authentic record of more than one adept who has attained a strength and serenity for which we lesser mortals wistfully yearn. I have borne witness in the book to other things also, things marvelous and weird. They seem incredible now as I sit and type my narrative through the inked ribbon amid the matter of fact surroundings of English countryside. Indeed, I wonder at my temerity in writing them down for a skeptical world to read. But I do not believe the present materialistic ideas which dominate the world will remain for all the time. Already one can perceive prophetic indications of a coming change of thought. Yet, quite frankly, I do not believe in miracles. Neither do most men of my generation. But I do believe that our knowledge of nature's laws is incomplete and that when the advanced guard of scientists who are pushing forward into unexplored territory have found out a few more of those laws, we shall then be able to do things which are tantamount to miracles. That's all, folks. Let's continue in the next chapter. Thank you. Bye bye. Rama Rama Pupodu.